As we know, the Republican Revolution was when the Republicans, for the first time in 4 decades, took control of the House. Now, Jackson Jude only goes back to 1976, back when the Democrats actually had a supermajority in Congress, and when the tipping point for Democrats was well over 15%, which actually, to be fair, would be repeated by Democrats again in 2008, as well as several, preceding elections, but that's a story for another time. What I'm trying to get at here, though, is that you can look at the Democratic dominance in the South as a cause for why Democrats had the majority for so long. Then you remember the Republican Revolution and what happened. And you realize that not only did the Democrats have control of the House before then, but it was never really even particularly close. I mean, the closest Republicans came was 1980. They had the majority in South Carolina. They had a split delegation in Arkansas, but every other state in the South was overwhelmingly in favor of the Democratic Party. And then you have to remember that in 82, Democrats gained a ton of ground that was never really undone. In 92, Arkansas and South Carolina were split, and Florida actually had a slight advantage towards the Republicans, but every other state had an advantage towards the Democrats. Even Virginia, which was actually a pretty strong Republican state in 1980. The South was a huge reason as to why the Republican Revolution happened. Because in many, look at Oklahoma. It was 4-2 Democrat before, and it became 5-1 Republican after. Looking at Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, Republicans have the majority and they expand on them. Not so much in Virginia. But in a lot of states, they can actually expand on their majority. The South, really finally electing Democrats to the House is a huge reason why this revolution happened. Because when you look at a map of the gains and the losses, a lot of the gains were in the South. Sure, you had some gains out west and a few in the Northeast too, but a ton of the gains were in the South. You look at where the net changes occurred, a lot of big net changes occurred in states in the former Confederacy in the Southeast, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas. Now, in Texas, Democrats maintained a hefty majority still. Republicans would not get a majority of seats in Texas until 2004, but they would maintain it ever since. Even amidst 2006 and 2008 in those landslides, where we saw a resurgence in Republican support in the South. See, in 96, we saw even more Republican gains in the South, and then we saw that trend kind of reverse a bit until, 2010, when the South sort of became a Republican heavy in Congress for good. I mean, it would take until 2018 when a former Confederate state would have a Democratic majority in Congress again, so. And again, the South becoming more Republican on a statewide level is why the Republican Revolution happened.